2076, request flight.
Every single day, nearly 45,000 flights traverse the skies of the United States, safely moving millions of passengers under the watchful eye of a multi-billion-dollar air traffic control infrastructure. To the traveling public, the runway represents the absolute safest, most tightly regulated zone in their entire journey, but deep within the unedited voice logs of the Federal Aviation Administration, a chilling data anomaly is emerging. In recent months, an unprecedented wave of near disasters known as runway incursions has brought multiple major airports to the absolute edge of total catastrophe. Why is it that in an era of hyper-advanced radar, GPS tracking and automated navigation, some of the world's most elite pilots are suddenly steering their aircraft into the path of oncoming traffic? The invisible crisis on America's runways is a lesson in systemic failure. It is an investigation into how minor administrative oversights, exhausted crews, and a catastrophic reliance on visual perception have completely hollowed out the thin line separating a routine landing from the deadliest disaster in human history. On July 7, 2017, Air Canada Flight 759 was approaching San Francisco International Airport just past midnight, completing a grueling transcontinental journey from Toronto. The crew was cleared for a routine visual approach to land on runway 28 right. What the pilots did not realize was that the adjacent parallel landing strip, runway 28 left, had been closed for nighttime maintenance and its lights had been deactivated. Because human psychology forces pilots to look for a parallel pair of paths, the crew misread the dark layout, steering their 200-ton aircraft directly toward taxiway Charlie. Lined up on that exact taxiway were 4 fully fueled commercial planes packed with over 1,000 passengers waiting for departure clearance. Air Canada descended directly toward the row of aircraft, missing the tail fence of a Boeing 787 by a mere few meters after a panicked United Airlines pilot broke emergency radio protocols to yell,
Where's this guy going? He's on the taxiway.
This close call became an administrative warning, exposing that the crucial data regarding the runway closure had been buried deep inside a multi-page unindexed document known as a NOTAM, Notices to Airmen, which the crew had simply failed to parse. The San Francisco incident was not an isolated event. It exposed a fundamental flaw in how airport ground movement is managed. In January 2023, New York's JFK International Airport faced an identical breakdown of situational awareness. American Airlines Flight 106 was instructed to taxi along a specific path, while Delta Flight 1943 was clearing for a high-speed takeoff roll down runway 4 left. A minor protocol deviation initiated the chain reaction. When reading back the instructions, the American Airlines pilot omitted the runway crossing assignment, a mistake the busy ground controller simply dismissed. Moments later, instead of turning right, the American crew taxied straight onto Juliet intersection, crossing the active runway directly in front of the accelerating Delta jet. Because the ground traffic and departing traffic operate on entirely separate radio frequencies, neither crew could hear each other's commands. Only a split-second radar intervention by the tower controller, screaming for Delta to cancel takeoff,
Delta 1943, cancel takeoff plans,
prevented a high-velocity T-bone collision by a margin of just 1,000 feet. The most terrifying indicator of this system-wide vulnerability occurred just 3 weeks later in Austin, Texas. Under a heavy 1,000-foot thick layer of dense ground fog, FedEx Flight 1432, a massive Boeing 767 cargo plane was executing a Category 3 automated instrument landing. Because the visibility was down to zero, the pilots relied entirely on the aircraft's internal computers to steer them toward the ground. Simultaneously, the tower controller cleared Southwest Flight 708 for an immediate takeoff on the exact same runway, assuming the commercial jet would execute a rapid departure. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. The Southwest plane lingered at the threshold for over 60 seconds. As the FedEx cargo jet emerged from the thick fog bank just 150 feet above the ground, the pilots suddenly saw the lights of the Southwest plane directly in front of them on the tarmac. Overriding standard protocols, the FedEx captain initiated an immediate emergency go-around, using the raw thrust of his engines to outclimb the departing Southwest jet. The two multi-ton airframes passed within less than 100 feet of each other, a distance so narrow that standard automated collision avoidance warnings could barely react in time. The recent spike in runway incursions is a striking reminder of a historic paradox. The deadliest accident in aviation history did not occur in the upper atmosphere. It happened flat on the ground in 1977 when two Boeing 747s collided on a foggy runway in Tenerife, killing 583 people due to a single unverified radio clearance. Today, despite decades of security advancements, the FAA continues to face structural strains, including a severe shortage of air traffic controllers and systemic overscheduling, forcing single controllers to manage multiple ground and air movements simultaneously. The true realization is deeply sobering. Our hyper-automated aviation systems have built a false illusion of perfect safety, yet the entire multi-trillion-dollar network still relies on a single human controller catching a minor tracking deviation on a radar screen. If the statistical charts prove that these near misses are moving from rare anomalies into a predictable system pattern, how safe do you really feel while your plane is taxiing toward the runway? Let me know in the comments.